Greetings all. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you. This is Dr. Jason Johnson. You are here at Dr. Jason Johnson's YouTube. If this is your first time, for a lot of you it isn't, but if it's your first time, I'm just going to let you know, you're going to see this first minute here, which is a preview of all the different things we're going to talk about on today's episode. You're going to see that on X. You're going to see that on Twitter. My mama called it Twitter. I'm always going to call it Twitter. You'll see that on Instagram. But the full video is on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, and share. I know the vast majority of you will appreciate what you hear. So, three things for today. It is Christmas season. You see, I've got my Tommy from Power. Christmas is canceled. If you watch the earlier seasons, you get what that's about. It's a time of giving. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys something really quick. I hadn't planned on doing this today. We're going to talk about three things. Number one, we're going to talk about Nicki Minaj at Turning Point USA. I think it's important to talk about these rappers and entertainers, in particular in the black community, who seem to have gone MAGA, and what that means and why the media, certainly the mainstream media coverage of it, isn't actually the story that you need to know. So we're going to start with Nicki Minaj. That's the first thing. Number two, we're going to talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle. I saw his latest special. I think that sometimes there's an over-analysis of comedy, but I think that Dave Chappelle's turn in his last 4 or 5 specials kind of dovetails into what we're going to talk about with Nicki Minaj. So second, we're going to talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle, what that means, and what we should be expecting today from comedy and entertainers and people like that. And then third, we're going to talk about the Epstein files, because they dropped on Friday, and everything that I've been saying all along about the Epstein files, lo and behold, has more or less turned out to be true. So here we go. Three things. So starting number one with Nicki Minaj. If you didn't see, last week, Nicki Minaj came out on stage for Turning Points USA, which is the sort of conservative college organization. And she praised Donald Trump, and she said he's a handsome guy, and she said that Gavin Newsom is terrible, and all sorts of other ridiculous nonsense things. Here's the thing about that. Obviously, she's getting critiqued online, as would be expected, right? And part of why that's happening is because, number one, the vast majority of her fan base are not Donald Trump supporters. They're not right-wingers. So when Nicki Minaj does something like this, the very same people who are her barbs or her supporters are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But I want to cut through that and just get to the basic point. This is the grift, y'all. It's the grift. It's the thing that Clay Kane talks about. It's the thing that I talk about all the time. When you see these rappers and entertainers and actors and musicians, when they are past their prime, when they have nothing else to give, when they have no movies coming, when their albums aren't selling the way they used to, they all go to the right. Why should anybody be surprised by this, right? What did we see with Justin Timberlake after years and years of hip hop and coolness and I date black women and everything else? What did he do? When his career starts to fade, he decides he's the man of the woods, right? Lorenzo Lamas, Zachary Levi, all of these people, when their careers start to fade, they go right. And we have seen a version of that with many rappers and entertainers. So I don't know why anybody is surprised that Nicki Minaj is doing this. Have you been checking for her last album? Do you remember her last hit song? It might have been Anaconda from like 5 or 6 years ago. So that's not a surprise. And I think a lot of the dragging is because people want to act surprised about something they could expect. But there's a deeper issue here that I think is important to sort of highlight and kind of dovetails eventually into what I'm going to say about Dave Chappelle. It's the idea that a lot of the capture of black entertainers and black entertainment by the Trump regime is based on the fact that no matter how wealthy you are, and I want you to hear this, no matter how wealthy you are as a black person, many black people are still living or have passed through the margins of the law, which make them subject to abuse by a government that chooses to do so. So no matter how rich you are, you're still black. So what do I mean by that when it comes to somebody like Nicki Minaj? Well, one, she's not a citizen. Remember, she's not a citizen. She is a Trinidad. She's not an American citizen. Two, she is married to a man who is accused, convicted of sex abuse. Her brother is serving time for sex abuse. So why would it be surprising to anyone that a woman like that is going to come out in support of a president who has been accused multiple times and convicted of sexual assault and sexual abuse? This is all within her bailiwick at this particular point in her career. And lastly, most importantly, you'll notice that, again, no matter how rich she is, no matter how black she is, this is all sort of, it's hunting for pardons and peace. Nicki Minaj could be kicked out of this country at any point, certainly under this regime. They could send ICE after her in a minute. So why are you surprised that she's trying to kiss up? She ain't trying to leave this country. And think of Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg went from hating Donald Trump to now praising him and performing at the Republican inauguration. Why? Because Donald Trump got one of his friends out of jail. So if you don't think that Nicki Minaj's behavior is driven by anything other than, just avarice to get her brother out of prison, I don't know what to sell you, right? These are people who are compromised and captured. I'm not saying that you can't have black Republicans. I'm not saying you can't have black MAGA. I'm saying this is somebody who is completely captured and is capitulating to this government because she's trying to get her brother, who is in jail for sex crimes, out of jail. I don't think that is a crazy thing to speculate. And more importantly, when you look at her career arc, it's very similar to Kanye West, right? Go far right, music's not selling the same way, let me try and make money in this particular way. So I'm not surprised by any of that. I'm not shocked, I'm not offended. Nicki Minaj has been talking about COVID denialism and saying it caused her cousin's genitals to be affected and going after Megan Stallion for Tory Lanez. She's been a problem for years, so why is anyone surprised by this turn? So what I mean by that actually takes us to topic number 2, Dave Chappelle. So this is an interesting thing I want to say about Chappelle. And I just watched his last comedy special. So I'm going to say up front, I generally like Dave Chappelle. I think he's funny, right? He's a funny comedian. I think that the analysis of his work in his last several comedy specials, I think he gets too deep and too involved. It's a freaking comedy special. I don't think everything needs to be dissected to every single, it's comedy. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. If you don't think it's funny, you don't have to watch. But I do think there's something about this latest special that sort of finally captures the problem that and I think a lot of people have been having with Dave Chappelle for the last couple of years. So follow me on this journey. Dave Chappelle is one of the greatest comedians of all time. He is now up there in the pantheon. He is up there in the pantheon with Red Fox. He's up in their pantheon with George Carlin. He's up there in the pantheon with Richard Pryor. Like he is considered he's a made man. He's up there with like Chris Rock, right? And part of what made him one of the greats, one of the sort of Mount Rushmore people, is he was always a great stand-up comedian. He always had the technical things good about comedy. He had good timing. He managed to just be funny. He told good stories. He had good audience engagement. Then he has the Chappelle Show, which is an amazing show. It's hilarious. It's groundbreaking. It changed the nature of TV. And then he did something which is always what makes a comic move from just being a great comedian, just like one of the all-time greats, which is you do something that moves the culture. When Dave Chappelle quit Comedy Central, that man walked away from $50 million. Remember, at the time, they were going to pay him more money than they were going to pay Jon Stewart to stay at Comedy Central. And he turned it down. He didn't just turn it down. He turned it down. He went to Africa, disappeared, and explained later that the reason he turned it down is because at its core, he was trying to make a point with his comedy, and he became frustrated that he thought that white people in particular were misinterpreting. He's like, no. These people are laughing at instead of laughing with. So it seemed like a principle thing. So that skyrocketed him into almost like, oh my gosh, he's a comedian. He's got principles, and there's a price, right? $50 million was not enough for him to compromise what he thought was important. So that's what makes Dave Chappelle great. Problem is, for the last 15 years since then, we realized that the principles that we thought were driving him aren't the principles that drive him. Dave Chappelle just wants to be able to say whatever he wants and not face like any pushback on it. He wants to be able to make fun of whoever he wants to make fun of and not hear an audience reaction. And what I noticed in this comedy show, there were parts that I laughed, but I don't enjoy watching a comedian spend 20 minutes telling me about how rich he is and then complaining about cancel culture and then telling me stories about him and his famous friends. Dave Chappelle hasn't aged well at all as a comedian. I think he is so enamored with his own fame and being called one of the greats that now he just sounds like your grumpy MAGA black uncle. Cancel culture. How are you talking about cancel culture when you're doing a Netflix special? They tried to cancel me. How are you talking about you're one of the richest, wealthiest? Your whole comedy routine is about how you own a town, right? All of his things about, I want to be able, the thing about a quality comedian, the ones that we respect, is because comedy is about punching up, right? You don't have to necessarily stand for the little guy, but you got to call out the BS of the system. But once you are the system, and Dave Chappelle is definitely the system, you don't have that much to say. And a lot of other comedians, you look at You look at Bill Burr, who I think is still ascending. You look at Bill Burr. You look at Kevin Hart. A lot of comedians, when they get older, they get self-reflective, right? The comedy is not about just chasing money or whatever it is. They realize they're old. Hey, interpersonal relationships. Even Chris Rock and Tambourine kind of talked about aging and being a parent, whatever it is. Dave Chappelle is in his 50s, right? Late 40s, 50s, whatever it is. And he's talking about how mad he is that he can't continue to make trans jokes. And the audience, of course, has lost a lot of interest because you spend more time attacking trans people than you do MAGA. You spend more time criticizing the downtrodden and complaining about how you don't have the freedom to do what you want to do than the people who are actually doing oppression. So again, it's an okay show, but it's an example of the fact that we thought Dave Chappelle was somebody that he wasn't. We thought the man who turned down $50 million from Comedy Central was a principled comedian. And it turns out he's just a basic capitalist like everybody else. And he didn't care about pointing or speaking truth to power. What he cared about was being able to say whatever he wants and not getting any pushback. To be perfectly honest, him criticizing Bill Maher, I'm sorry, that's the Spider-Man meme to me, because Bill Maher basically said the same thing. Bill Maher said, I don't want to do comedy anymore because I can't go to Berkeley and make fun of Muslims. Well, Bill Maher, your comedy hasn't evolved with the audience. And Dave Chappelle's comedy hasn't evolved with the audience. It's just that his audience is so huge and he gained a new right-wing audience that he can still say what he says. So, as fine. I mean, I thought it was an interesting special, but I think we need to recognize, just like with Nicki Minaj, these people have a price. And we need to stop looking at them as scions of quality. Maybe at one point they were, but he's not now, and that's okay. You can enjoy a show and not necessarily gain any tremendous value from it. Last thing is this, very quickly. I want to talk a little bit about Epstein. I was right. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. There is a moral element to Epstein. There is a political element to Epstein. There's a legal element to Epstein. The moral element to the Epstein files is everybody who was involved in the trafficking and abuse of young women, and I bet you there's some men in there too, should all be under a jail. That's the moral thing. There's no question. The legal question is, it didn't look like anyone else is going to get prosecuted once this information was released. And the political question was, who really cares? It's primarily something about MAGA, because if you were a Democrat or a non-Trump voting independent, you already knew that you didn't like Donald Trump. Nothing's going to be revealed. But what ended up happening? The files got dropped last Friday, and surprise, surprise, they hid everything. I told you that the Epstein files, if they were going to get released, it was going to look like piano keys. It wasn't going to be anything new, and no one's going to be held accountable. So now we've got the same administration who, surprise, surprise, lied all the time, is still lying about this. Don't know why anyone is shocked. So those are the three things. One, Nicki Minaj. She is captured, but understand, a lot of black entertainers, no matter how wealthy they are still black. Some of them have legal fees. Some of them have citizenship challenges. Some of them have legal cases that they want to eliminate for themselves or others, which means they are highly susceptible to being manipulated by this administration. Number two, Dave Chappelle has a price. Why should anybody be shocked? He is going to continue to be a stale, stagnant man trapped in ember. He's still one of the best ever, but all he cares about is his money, and all he cares about is telling you how rich he is. He's not really providing any insight about the world anymore. It's a shame, but hey, not all comedians age well. And third, the Epstein files are out, but surprise, surprise, it's not going to change anything. And we should have known that all along. Now let's focus on more important things like the elections in 2026. Thanks so much. This is 3 Things with Dr. Jason Johnson. Please like, subscribe, and share. Share this video with others. Please press the like button, press the share button, and press the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. Happy holidays. Catch you later.